In this last video in our list type series, we're going to think about how to write the toString method that would apply to our list class. Our list of methods that we had included a constructor, something that allowed us to store or add data to the list, something that allowed us to get data out of the list at a particular index, something that let us test to see if the list contained a value, something that let us access the length of the list. And now we have these two last methods left that should be part of any class that we write, the equals method and the toString method. We're going to write the toString method together, and then I'm leaving the equals method that compares two objects as part of the lab challenge for the week. Don't forget, you can use your equals method that we wrote together for the student type class last week as a model, and just think about how you would need to change that so it applies to this list class. So let's look at the code for the toString method. Remember that the toString method's purpose is to print information about the internal state of the object. So you're trying to print out all of the data values that are part of the list. And remember, you're not trying to make it beautifully formatted for user consumption. Instead, you're trying to print it so that if you, the programmer, are trying to debug something, you can get like quick access to the data fields to help you with your debugging process. So our list class that we wrote, it has three data fields in it: the array, the actual size, and the max size. We're going to want to print all of those values. And we're going to need a loop in our solution, because when we print an array, if we just say like print and then the name of the array, it's going to print the memory address of that array. We don't want to do that. We want to print the contents of the array. All right, so we're going to start writing this toString method. This was the end of, whoops, I'm in the main method. This is the end of our size method. So we want to override the method that's in the Java library. And we're writing a string method called toString. So we're returning a string value. And remember that inside the method, you just want to create a string object. I always call it result or something like that. Where you just want to store, like, literally, what kind of stuff do you want to print out? So one thing you want to print out is the name of the class. So list is the name of my class. And then I'm going to put in some curly brackets. That just helps me to delimit the information in the collection. So I'm going to print out, we're going to print like the array values first. So I'm going to print like a square bracket around that, so that it's going to print list, curly bracket, array equals, and then inside the square brackets, it'll have the contents of the array. So that's just my initial kind of label information. Now I want to include a loop that iterates through all the items that are part of the collection. So I'm making my count controlled loop here. And then I want to add on, concatenate to my result, information about the object. So that's going to be the array at index I. Cool. And then I'm also going to concatenate a comma as long as I'm not at the last item in the collection. So if I is less than the actual size minus 1, then I want to concatenate a comma. That'll just like let me separate all of the data values. So that's my for loop. Then at the end of the for loop, I want to concatenate a square bracket to close out my array. And then I want to start adding in the information about my actual size and my max size. We could do that in a separate statement, or we could do it all in one. So we want to also add in information about the actual size. So we put a label for that. Actual size plus the actual size. And then I also want to add in max size equals plus max Again, you could do that all on one line if you wanted to, or you could break it up. Awesome. So that's just setting up my string value, my information that I want to return. When I get to the end of the method, I want to return that string called result. Let me add my comment in here. This is overriding the toString method for list type. And we're returning a string with the contents of the object. Oops. Awesome. So let's try this out from our main program. Let's do a system.out.println other list dot toString. See what prints out. So you can see the result of the toString method right here. It's printing list, curly bracket, array equals, and then the contents of the list, the 0 through 4. Then the actual size and the max size, those were both 5. In this example, we certainly could have set it up so that those are different values. That's just the values that happen to be in there in our collection. I want to add in a closing curly bracket just so that we can kind of match up with that one. So at the end here, I want to add a closing curly bracket. And then I think in my other example, I had commas between stuff. So I'm going to put that in there too. Comma, comma. All right, so let's try it again. Awesome, I'm feeling better about that. So now we got the list as our data type that's printing, and then the contents of the array enclosed in square brackets, and then a comma, and then the actual size, and then a comma, the maximum size, and then closing out this curly bracket to represent the fact that that's the end of the data that's inside our list object. So at this point, we've finished implementing our list class, at least as far as we're going to go together. Remember that you can still finish the equals method that's in the lab for the week. And you can use the model that's in our student class to help you create it. Also use some of the ideas from our toString method. Remember, if you want to access information in the array, you're going to need a loop. That's going to be important in your equals method that you create. And hopefully these lectures have helped to demystify some of the kind of mysteriousness of the ArrayList class and other classes that are part of the Java API, and hopefully helped get an appreciation for the flexibility of the object. When we created our array to store objects, that means we can create objects or lists in our main program that store integers, of course, but we can also make a list type that stores information about like strings. I'll put that in here. And that'll work just fine too. If we run our program with a string in there, it'll print out the contents of the string. So it makes our class really flexible because we use that generic object type that's the superclass of all superclasses. It means we can replace that data value with anything that's a reference type in our program. And that's how the ArrayList class is made and why it's so flexible.